friends, welcome back to my channel. I am Deb Green, and I thought it would be fun to do a little experiment and compare three very different qualities of watercolor paper, starting with a cellulose paper. So this is a 100% wood pulp paper, along with one of my favorite budget-friendly 100% cotton paper, which is the Meeden cold press block. And then we'll do the same techniques on this top of the line Arch or Arches watercolor paper, which is also 100% cotton cold press. The weight is the same as the Meeden, which is 140 pound or 300 GSM, so that will not be different. It's just in the way the paper is made, the sizing used. It does definitely feel different even just to the touch. So I look forward to this little experiment here. So we're going to do them one at a time on the various surfaces, and then at the end we'll compare the results. I'm going to be using this Princeton Aqua Elite 1/2 inch flat brush. I hope it's not too big, along with this number 8 round brush. This is by Rosemary & Co. They are out of the UK, but they do have very affordable shipping if you do want to look into these brushes. Going to go ahead and spray my paints, kind of wake them up a little bit. The first one I'm going to do is wet on wet. I'm going to take this larger shader here just for the sake of time. And then I'll go back to my Princeton and grab some of this bright purple. Lay it in wet on wet. Ooh, so pretty. Just let it kind of run out of my brush a little bit. That way I get a little bit of a gradient. See how that behaves. It's already puddling right here a little bit, which I expect from this paper, because this paper is not going to absorb the same way as the cotton does. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of that bright purple and just lay it in, get a nice little explosion of color here. It's pretty. All right, I was impressed by that. All right, go back and lay in a rectangle of water. I'm going to do wet on wet, but I'm going to lay some salt in there. Oh, look at that explode on there. That is really nice. Good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of kitchen salt. Let that kind of react on there. I will try not to hit my brush on the edge of the glass so that it clangs loudly. I apologize for that. I am going to do some glazing, so I'm going to lay this down wet on dry. Just lay some lines. I should do various colors of lines. So that's bright purple, and this next color is New Gamboge, a nice warm yellow. And what else? One of these turquoisey colors. This one is quite opaque, which shouldn't really matter because it's on the bottom. Well, I guess it's not as opaque as I thought. Okay, good. Looks very opaque when it's in the pan. All right. Okay, so we're going to come on top of that with some other colors. That's only half of the experiment on that one. All right, then next is wet on dry, so I'm going to get plenty on my brush. Just lay it on here. Behaving nicely. I'm just going to let my brush run out. Nice effects. All right, so I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. Once it's pretty well dry, I'll hit it with a blow dryer so that I can come back and do this bit right here. But it is puddling down here. Oh, I remember, I wanted to do one more thing. I want to drop some water on here. So I'll just add some water. Add some water. I want to create some of those blooms and see how it behaves. I'll add a pretty big blob of water down here just to see. Why not, right? Okay. Take a thirsty brush just so there's a little bit less to have to dry out. It's already buckling. The paper's not really happy, but that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. I'm going to hit this with a blow dryer and be right back. Okay, so not 100% dry, but that's okay. It will have some time as I'm painting the other sheets, but I wanted to dry this area completely so that I can glaze over the top of it. I am going to grab my 1/2 inch flat and go into the quinacridone rose because it is a transparent color, which will help in this experiment. We need to add a little bit more water, kind of wake that up. Okay, alrighty. Just going to take a pass over the top. Okay, not bad. Not really as rich as what I wanted, so I'm going to make that a little bit more saturated, would be the proper vocab. I'm going to pass along the top again. All right, we can see the other colors underneath. I'm going to go ahead and go over it with permanent orange, which is another color that is transparent. Clean this out a little bit. A little messy with my colors. Not too proud of that. Back to life. All right. Okay. You can see the colors underneath fairly well. Pretty happy with that. I am going to set this aside and experiment with the Meeden. Okay, so the difference between this and our first experiment was the fact that this is 100% cotton. It is considered a student grade because it's more affordable. It's probably a little bit cheaper to manufacture, but this has been my go-to watercolor paper. A block like this is about $16 for 20 sheets, and so I don't feel guilty when I mess up. Also, just touching on this, if you do purchase a block like this, there's a little gap in the top right here that you stick a palette knife or other cutter, and then you run it around all the edges once you are finished with your painting and you want to take it off of the block. So super easy. I like it because as I'm painting, I can turn it around. So, all right, without further ado, let's get a little bit of water on our paper. I will label these when I'm done so that we know what we are dealing with. I'll make sure I get a goodly amount of water because since this is cotton paper, it will absorb, kind of like a cotton t-shirt's going to absorb. You can tell my water's not as clear as it was, but hey, that's perfectly fine. All right, I'm going to pick up some of that bright purple color that we were working with earlier, and I'm going to lay that in here wet on wet. I like how it explodes out of the brush. Behaves nicely. Nice and rich. That went well. I'm going to go ahead and paint 2 more squares. Just going to start the next square. Why not, right? All right. I'm going to drop. Ooh, beautiful. That's how that looks. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint that wet on wet over here and put the salt on it. Okay. Okay, we're just going to let that take effect. And then we're going to glaze like we did. Went the wrong direction. It's all right. No big thing. I'm going to pick up that yellow that we used earlier, which was the new gamboge. Finish off with this turquoise color. Light cobalt. No, I'm sorry, just light turquoise. Very transparent color. Okay. Going to paint a wet on dry square, and then drop some water in there so we can see how it behaves. But this goes on the paper beautifully. Very rich and saturated. Our other experiment is going to see how it dries. I want to make sure it's not drying very pale, losing some of its saturation as it dries. Okay. Now, we should be aware that if you take this saturated area and add water to it, you're going to get these blooms, or cauliflowers as some people call them. So we're kind of doing that on purpose, just to see how it would behave. I'm going to add a little bit more down here in the corner. Then I'm going to take what's left over here on my brush and just run it out like a dry brush, however long it takes to do that, and how it behaves. Okay. All right. I am going to go and blow dry this area so we can finish our glazing, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I did not blow dry this area because I want to let it do its thing. Also, the salt needs to dissipate out into the water, so you do not want to blow dry that area either. We're going to finish this off by taking some quinacridone rose, or quin rose as some people call it, a little nickname. I'll go with a lighter wash first, just like I did before, only 90 degrees different. All right, and then I'm going to saturate that a little bit more in the middle. Beautiful. You don't want to go over it so many times that you disturb that bottom color there. And then the last color, was New Gamboge. Okay, so I am going to set this aside and we'll do the same thing on the Arch paper. Then we'll compare all three side by side and talk about the characteristics that we see. One thing I already noticed is that it's not puddling on the paper like the cellulose paper. It has absorbed down into that cotton. The thinner washes are almost completely dry, and even where I loaded up the water, it is not puddled like the cellulose paper was. Okay, so this is the Arch paper. This happens to be the little travel journal, and I have been too scared to try it out. So this is truly the first time I have used this paper. I'm really excited to see how it performs. We're going to take our thick brush over here and wet our paper into our rectangles. Same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just put the first three down just for the sake of time here. If they absorb too much, I will just do it again. Okay, since this one is the easiest, I'm going to explode these just to get an idea. Then we'll go ahead with our wet on wet in our first square. I love how it's exploding right out of my brush. It is just beautiful. And then I'm going to do the salt. I am going to just kind of leave this in a little bit of a Alright, so I want to make sure this is nice and even, so the salt has something to use as it is doing its little thing. This is just regular old kitchen salt, nothing fancy. Okay, so we're going to glaze. First color is this bright purple. I'm just going to stick with what I did the last time. I don't think I have enough paint here. A little bit dry on there. It's better. Second color, Cad Yellow Medium. I hope I'm using the same colors each time. I didn't write this down. Yeah, we're good. All right, last color is that light turquoise color. Make sure you have enough water in your brush, because the paper is really sucking it up quick, which is great. Just gonna make sure you're actually painting with watercolor, hence the name. Ooh, look how pretty that is. Oh, beautiful. Okay. I'm going to drop some water on here. A bigger area at the bottom, like what I did with the rest of them. No favoritism here. And I put some paint on my brush, and I'm just going to run it across until it dries out. Okay, so it kind of beads on there, really pretty. Okay, just like the rest, I'm going to go blow dry this little area right here, and I will be right back. So let's wrap this up. We are going to let these sit a little bit, let this salt dry on all three. We'll rub the salt off, and then we'll compare each square across the three different papers. All right, so we are ready to compare here. The first line is the cellulose paper, the 100% wood pulp paper, and the second line is the Meeden paper. The third line is the Arsh paper. These two are both 100% cotton, like I mentioned. So my big takeaway here, this paper buckled terribly. It's fine for a sketchbook and to kind of mess around with, test your paints, maybe even swatch your paints, but I would not paint something that you intend to frame or keep in some way on this cellulose paper. Although I will say I do like the way the salt exploded out of the paint there. That was very nice. I was impressed with the way it did bust out. But the wash is just kind of faded. It's not great. Where these washes are much more vibrant. I like the way the paper has a beautiful matte surface to it. The way the light hits, it's just muted. It's beautiful. I really liked the way the Meeden paper handled the explosion of color. I think that it did the best out of all three of these, honestly, although I do like the dark center that was on the Arsh paper. The salt on the Meeden was just okay. Maybe I didn't apply it the same way as the other two, but the salt on the Arsh is just fantastic. Can you imagine putting that on a landscape or some other textural surface that you need to portray in a painting? It's just beautiful. So let's switch it up here, and I'm going to, if it's not too confusing, I'm going to reverse. Here we go. Okay, I'll just hold it like this. So now the cellulose paper is right here, and you can see some big differences in the glazing. This did not glaze very well. It just pooled and puddled and created these blooms, or cauliflower as they're called, here where we did not want them. This was not on purpose. This was on purpose. This was not. And the dry brush behaved like a dry brush. It was fine. I do like these effects right there, but it was very easy to create these blooms, and we could create the blooms on the other two, but they kind of turned out kind of cool. Like you could see where you might even be able to do fireworks or just some other effect with what's left here, even doing some negative painting around it, where this just looks like a mistake. If we talk about the dry brush, I'm not sure why this Arsh dry brush dried so much lighter than the Meeden, because I used the same paint out of the palette and I did not mix the color. So I'm not sure why there's a difference here. I tend to like this one. The wet on dry and then that water laying down really look nice. This does not look like a mistake at all, actually. Okay, let's talk about the glazing. I don't know what happened here. I must have had a little too much water. Remember I said I wanted to lighten that up a little bit. Maybe I did just lay a little too much water down there. I don't know. But what I do like is that you can still see each color underneath. But this one is just honestly the winner here. The water went right down into the paper. It didn't create these weird little blooms right here. I can still see the color underneath each one of these lines. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on these three different papers. I am still very impressed with this Meeden cold press paper. I think that it behaved beautifully. Just putting that into perspective, I did a little bit of math. This Canson paper, sketchbook paper basically, is 21 cents a sheet. The Meeden paper is 85 cents a sheet, and the Arch watercolor paper is $1.49 a sheet in this travel journal. So these prices are quoted in the exact sizes of the paper that I used. So I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Also, please remember that all of the products that I use today are linked in the description box. Thank you for spending this time with me. It just means so much. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.